Welcome to Yes Also. I'm Susie Barrett. My guest today is the brilliant and delightful Tao Yang. You know Tao as a cast member on Dropout. He's on shows like Game Changers and Thousandaire. And fun fact, he's also one of the writers who pitches prompts for the show Make Some Noise. At UCB LA, he's on the Harold team Power of Attorney. And in New York, he was on an indie team called the St. Louis Rams that ran the Indie Improv Showcase for years. This conversation is everything. Tao has some brilliant metaphors, some new ways of seeing and thinking about improv, some hot takes on Harold openings, and he shares them all clearly and simply and in a way that I think you'll find really easy to digest. It's just a delight in here. This episode is part 1 of Tao's 2-part episode. For part 2, you'll have to become a subscriber, which you can do over at yesalso.supercast.com. It's quick and easy, and once you sign up, Supercast will give you a little button to click where you can just route all of the bonus content to your regular podcast player, so you never have to visit that website again. A huge thank you and shout out to all of our subscribers so far. You're keeping us going, you're helping us to pay our guests, and we can't thank you enough. And now, let's go to Tao Yang. Tao, thank you for being here.
Thank you. I'm so excited. It's like a long-time listener.
Oh, cool.
Of your podcast, but also kind of all of the like improv career podcasts.
How do we stack up?
I think it's great. I think top tier at least.
Great.
Yeah.
Top 100.
Top 100. And there's only like ever been 30.
Yeah. Do you have anything like coming in like that sparked you, a place where you would like to start, or that you've kind of been chewing on knowing that you're coming on here?
Sure. Yeah. I think like only recently did I like look around and I was like, oh, I guess I'm kind of a improv like veteran. Looking around being like, yeah, I guess I know things and forms that, because so much of improv is like you can write it down, you can record it, but it really is just like oral history of like, oh, this person was talking about this show and then this is how they did it back in the day. And
yeah, let's try this form that we've heard about, or I did a workshop over at this festival and now I'm going to try to tell you about what I saw.
Right, because then reading it from like a book, like the manual, or like from even like a little online thing, it just doesn't work.
Right.
You just need someone who like did it and then can tell you. So I've just been thinking about that of like, oh, I guess like I'm a veteran and I know things. I just never like thought of myself in that position ever, or would be in that position. So it's just be like, oh, I guess like I know a lot of improv things are in my brain and I'm constantly thinking about it.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
Do you feel like what do you feel like your angle is as an improviser? Because I know you've done everything. You've done like short form and like College Humor was a lot of sketch stuff. And now, you know, obviously you're huge in the long form space. Like, do you have an angle or a...
Yeah, I guess the angle has been like, oh, I didn't think I would continue doing this like almost at every step. I only really started like in like late into college, which sounds so like, oh, I was so old, but it's really not in the grand scheme of things.
And college was East Coast?
Yeah, East Coast. I went to Boston University. Cool. So the improv team there was Liquid Fun was the name of the team. Which, yes, we wore like baseball tees.
But they were made out of liquid.
Yeah, they were. It was like a waterbed, but a shirt.
Write that down. Sharks.
Sharks. Hello. I know we're all hot all the time.
Yeah. Hot and uncomfortable. Yeah.
And yeah, they were like not like in the category of college improv teams. They weren't like audition, but they then kind of sort of became that way in the middle of it when I was like just very much starting. They had like 2 open practices. And then it became like there's too many people showing up to these. So now we need to have one practice that's gated towards the people who are like the performers who did the shows, and then everyone else could come to the other days.
It's kind of a good system.
It is. It's actually it's very smart.
Because in a way, it's really good for fostering new people who you're not eliminating people with an audition that just because they were nervous or they're new. You're fostering that new talent, but also you're like prioritizing people who are performing performing and doing shows and maybe a little bit, was it like a audition thing, like you're a little bit better or you're a little bit like, more ready?
Yes. And so they were like, it was, since it was open at first and it just got so big the year I started that they had to have one practice where when it was still open, they had to, the leader of the group, this very nice man named Sean, who now does like incredible investigative journalism.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Had to go up to every single person and be like, you're not in the Thursday. You can't practice on Thursday. Sorry. Like,
he went up individually one by one.
He pulled, like, as we were doing like the normal practice, he pulled every single person aside to be like, you can't actually come to Thursday anymore. I'm so sorry.
It's like a reality show. It's like he's holding the rose. Exactly. Like each one has dramatic music, you know?
Right. Yeah. He's like, sorry. I'm so sorry. He's so nice about it. And I was like, not shocked. I was like so bad. I would like spend, as I was like walking over, we would do like 3-line scenes as warm up, and I would just like think of like as many funny things as I could, and so I knew I was just like really bad. And then that was when I first started taking classes at the time at Improv Boston.
Really quickly, can you, just because this is so funny to me, can you give me an example of the type of, like, you walking to practice thinking of a funny 3-line, you're thinking of an initiation? Give me an example of the type of thing that you would.
Yeah, I think I would initiate like something I would like think and rack my brain all day and be like, and it would be like, I'm like 21, so it'd be like, looks like there's a big bag of dead puppies over here. Just like the most, like, sell out like my race in scenes, just whatever I could to get a laugh. I was like, I need this. And
the other person who's spent all day racking their brain thinking of funny responses is like, the White House is on fire, though. Yeah,
we're off to a great start for a scene. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It was not a good way to do improv.
But I think that's really relatable for people, especially like in the short form space where you have to like come out like snappy and funny, and you're just learning it, and there's so much walking and chewing gum at the same time. It's like the instinct is to prime your brain, or to like, well, what am I gonna do when I get out there or whatever.
Exactly, because they're just like, what do I even say? I think I took a friend once to go see like a Harold show in like DC at one point, and the thing they said to me after the show, which I thought was so interesting, was they said, how do they know where to stand? Which I was like, I guess you just know.
That's so funny.
It's so specific.
I'm fascinated by stuff like that. People reverse engineering and assuming there's where to do it, or what to. A friend of mine, the first Harold team I was on at UCB was called Mr. and Mrs. All-Star. My friend Greg was on it, and his parents came to the show, and they had never seen improv before. And his dad, who's like an army general, or an army captain, afterwards he was like, that wasn't improvised. And Greg was heartbroken because it's like he like wanted to show them what he was doing, and he's like, no, it is. And he's like, if it was improvised, then how come everyone knew when the scenes were over?
You got us.
Yeah, you caught us. We all happen to know.
Right.
Yeah, that person who ran across the stage did it because they knew the line they were supposed to do it on, and then we all changed the scene.
Yeah, and we spent weeks rehearsing that. Like, you run this way once this line
Exactly. Yeah. You wouldn't believe the amount of hours we spent doing that shitty scene about a cat stuck in an umbrella,
Yeah, we planned all of that.
Yeah. Okay. So now you're taking classes in Boston. Was that at Improv Asylum or
no? Improv Boston.
Improv Boston.
Which now RIP. Sadly. Yes.
Okay. Here, I'll pour a little bit of my Hydro Flask out.
Please, thank you.
Yeah.
Wow, that's a lot.
well,
okay,
it's a big. It's percentage wise. It's only a little bit of the giant liter bottle. Okay.
Yeah. I took classes there, and then I did much better in like a structured, like, here's how to learn. And I'm so glad I taught classes there, because I'm so like the UCB mentality of like more, if like all improv theaters are like a spectrum of like writing to acting, used to be so like writer centric, and I am much more like that. So it's nice to go to start at a theater, which Improv Boston was founded by like I guess like ex Chicago IO people. So I have much more of like improv is theater mentality, and so glad I like got that training,
because it's sort of like corrects for like your natural proclivity is writerly.
Yes,
and then this swings you the other side, so you kind of land in the middle.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Where now I'm like, if I'm in a scene or like on a team and I'm like, oh, that the person someone else is doing a scene, I'm like, oh, their back is to the audience. Their back is to the audience. Their back is to the audience.
And then you go and physically grab them by the shoulders and gently turn them around.
Yeah, and I go, oh, sorry, I'm just the janitor. And I'll walk out.
I need to throw out this bag of dead puppies.
Exactly.
That's a great thing to notice, though, and great advice for people starting out. If they have a sense of being more theatrical or more writerly, to take classes at a place that kind of corrects for that or balances it out.
Yeah, if you come in with the opposite like thing that the theater teaches, I always think like people who are just starting at UCB, but who are really good, like committed actor types, they're the ones who they can like learn the game writing part of improv from UCB. I'm like, oh, you're gonna be the best around, because like, you have both things. Yeah,
it really is like it's a 2-bullet gun. Yeah. And plus other things that you sprinkle on later, but like those, if you can perform and you can write both really well, then
you need like a good silencer.
Yeah, right. A cool holster.
Like really good like flares, spin the gun.
God, Susie's podcast has turned all into like gun analogies.
The first ad is from like Smith and Wesson.
Right. Ooh, I hope we get that.
That'd be good money. It'd be really good money.
God, it really would.
Yeah.
Okay, so when you start taking classes there, did you start feeling more comfortable? Also, was that they were long form, not short form?
They were both. It was they had a system where, and I eventually like took the classes and auditioned, and they had also open auditions too, where it's like anyone who did. You know, you didn't have to have taken the classes there, which is also
that's cool.
Cool. But you audition for like one general round, and then you get a callback for the individual shows. And there was a Harold night show, but the first team I got on there was effectively a comedy sports. I would say inspired by comedy sports, or a comedy sports ripoff. It was a competitive short form style show that was like late night. It's called Face Off. And that's my first year, which I liked at first, and then I really started to not like it so much when I realized, like, oh, I guess I'll never be funnier than like a guessing game.
Yeah. Let's crack into that a little bit. Like, what is that feeling like? To explore that more.
Yeah, I think the crux of it is like, where like the balance of like, I want to be funny in a way that I think is funny and interesting to me versus what the audience thinks is funny and interesting. And I think a short form show like that swings so far the other way, at least the way it was set up. It swings so far what the audience thinks is funny that it just wasn't interesting to me. And I just felt like the audience is never like the height of the shows sometimes would just be the guessing games, like I'm Snoop Dogg and I was late for work because I was with, Eli Manning or something. Yeah.
And it's you're the laughs are coming from the big swing mistakes and those one person kind of being in the dark and everybody else being in the know, and the audience having this secret that you don't have,
right? And
then this like big physical kind of culmination of like landing on something. And
and there's just so many short form games where and I love short form. I love doing it. There are just the ones that are like the joke is built into the game itself versus the ones that are more like open, where it's like you actually just finding it. Right. There's some guardrails for you, but yeah, like feel like those. I'm like, oh, this isn't as interesting. I'd much rather do. They had a Harold night, so I like switched or wanted to switch to that instead.
So their Harold night, were they teaching Harolds in classes? So that's what that grew out of, was like their program was teaching.
Yes. Yeah. They would teach. It was similar of like the current UCB curriculum of like, it was like the third and fourth class were like Harold focus. And then their Harold, I think maybe, I don't know, I've never taken class at IO, were more like IO like, where it was like, oh, Harold's actually about finding like a theme. Yeah. What's the theme of this Harold? Right. What is this Harold about?
Yeah. What is this play that we're watching? Exactly. Or what is the point? Right. Or what do we go home thinking about? I kind of miss that in kind of this current iteration of Harold, or like maybe it's just because I've been at UCB and that's sort of the UCB style is more focused on like scenic games and just it's kind of siloed games that all are existing side by side, but you connect them in a way at the end, or maybe you bleed a group game in, but it's not really that the whole thing is swimming in this ooze of some theme.
Yes. The show isn't about anything. It's just these separate ideas that we're like playing, but there's no you couldn't really summarize the Harold as a whole. Right. It's just this is game 1, this was game 2, this was game 3.
Totally. And if when you're driving home, you're talking about like, oh my God, I loved that grandma who wanted to smoke weed all the time. Yeah. You're not going like, man, that one about regret was wild and it's like sticking to me, you know? Yeah. I think like those themed Heralds are so much more satisfying when you watch them and do them, but so much harder to hit. The success rate is low unless you're on a special team and you're really working towards it, but that speaks to like having that as a focus with a coach. Like I think you could reach that. It's just that we're not often like aiming for that bullseye. Yeah,
because I feel like there is such a fear of like failure if you like. A lot of people I don't think would make the trade-off of doing like, I'm gonna do 7 bad shows, 7 big misses, and I'm going to do 1 incredible show. Like every other, like
that's a great game. Like you're across the table from like the devil of improv, like doing a trade of like, how many bad shows would you be a part of to be a part of like this one amazing transcendent show? Right. That's really interesting.
Because most shows, because then if you just do like, oh, this was like a 7 out of 10 show.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh, you don't remember those at all. So
when I coached Bangarang, I kind of as a joke at first, I would like grade their Heralds. Like I'd be like, that was a solid B+. Like you should be really pleased with that. But because I gave it a grade and they're all really like hungry and driven, they were like, oh, but we want an A. So then it became a thing. Like they were like, is it an A? Was it an, you know? And I would, because they wanted me to, then I would give grades, and they were always hitting at least B's. In my opinion, this is so arbitrary. Right. But when they hit an A, like we could all feel it. And like when it was an A+, it was like, we felt that, right? That was an A+. Like the audience was like going nuts, and everybody walked out like buzzing with energy. And
that's great. I love that.
It's cool. Yeah.
Did you have to then like actually codify what was like, or was it just
I never did. It was just like my instinct, or which is why it's so arbitrary. It's like, as your one coach, like sitting here, like who am I? I'm just a person. Right. But it's like, you know, having seen, they would practice twice a week, so we would have like 2, like that. This would be like the 3rd Herald of the week, and it's like seeing all of these. You know, this one was more of a B, and this one was more of an A-, and this was an A+. And we could all feel it, you know. Right. But the quantification of like actually percentifying it, like why was this a 94 and this was a 99? It's like there's no system to that. It's just right.
You can say it's an A, and it's like you can't argue about it, but you can be like, oh well, you can't argue about whether it's an A- or an A+
totally.
Or whatever.
Yeah.
I have a very like nerdy math like analogy to like kind of exactly what you're talking about.
Love it. Hit me.
It's super nerdy. Okay, so there's like a math, I don't know what to call it. It's like a math theorem, but it's like it's called N equals NP.
Okay.
Or N does not equal NP. So it's super nerdy. You have to bear with me. Okay, so
1 + 1 is 2, or it's not.
Or it's not. You never know.
It's one or the other.
Yes. Well, it's like you get like I think you get like maybe like $1 million if you figure out whether it's equals or does not equals. Okay, so it's and the terms are kind of nonsensical if you don't know math. I don't really know anything about math, but okay, so N stands for like non-polynomial, and then NP stands for non-polynomial, and P stands for polynomial, which all that means is if you categorize all problems as N or NP, so N means it's a problem that's super easy to solve and super easy to verify that your answer is correct.
Okay.
So 2 plus 2 equals 4. Like
we can use beans and count them and add it up, and yeah,
exactly. And then well, an important part of this is if I give you like a 30-digit number plus another 30-digit number, it's like the question's harder, but it takes you this, slightly longer to answer, but you can still answer it, and like a computer can answer it very easily.
Yeah.
So that's like an N problem. It's like easy to solve and easy to verify.
Yep. I'm going to think of N as Neasy.
Neasy. Yeah. That's
super neasy.
You should actually write that. You can maybe get some money out of this.
Oh, great. Tell everyone.
Yeah. Tell all the mathematicians. So that's N. NP it is extremely hard to solve, like as a general like solution. But it's super easy to verify that your answer is correct.
The first one was easy and easy to verify.
Yes.
This one is not easy, but it's easy to verify.
That you're correct.
Gotcha.
So an example of that.
So it's neasy peasy. It's not peasy.
Not peasy.
It's not peasy.
Not peasy.
But
okay.
neasy to verify.
Yeah.
Okay.
Neasy and not peasy. Wait, what is it? Not peasy.
Neasy is easy, and not peasy is like it's neasy.
Easy.
You can do it, but it's not. It's not. It's not easy to do, but it's easy to verify.
Yeah, so it's
not peasy.
Not peasy. Oh, right. It's some kind of easy, but it's not. So it's not peasy.
If you're a mathematician, my Venmo is Susie-Barrett. It's 2 R's, 2 T's, and it's a ZI. Okay.
Yeah, $1 million, please.
$1 million. Thank you.
So an example of that would be if I gave you if I tell you to go to a grocery store and get me a set of items that exactly equals like $100.
Okay.
That'd be really hard for you to like come out with like a solution for that, but I could easily verify that you have $100 cart.
Gotcha. Right. Like I don't have a calculator, and I don't know the state's tax, or I don't remember it exactly. And I'm trying to like do all the math in my head, and I'm trying to hit it. It takes me a while. I have a really educated guess. I think I've gotten it, but you can easily scan, and within 10 seconds, you know if I've hit it or not. Okay.
And especially if it's like, I just give you like 20 items, it's probably pretty easy. You can maybe even have a solution for it, but as it scales up,
right.
It's super hard. It gets harder and harder.
Right.
Say with like Sudoku, it's like if I give you like a 30 by 30 Sudoku,
gotcha.
It's like hard to have a general solution to do exactly this and do these steps, but it's easy for me to verify this is correct.
Totally. Yep. Got it.
So
and 30 items for $100 with these prices today.
You'd be
very
lucky.
Hard. Yeah.
You'd be lucky to have 2 items to get $100.
Right. I get half an egg.
Yeah.
Thanks, Biden.
Where can we get eggs? Honestly, I've been having trouble.
Oh man. Are you a big egg eater?
I do like to have some eggs. Yeah. Maybe like we go through like a carton a week between 2 people.
That's cool.
I feel like that's about right.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Yeah.
All right. Okay.
So that's the 2 things. There's easy to solve, easy to verify problems.
Yeah.
Not easy to solve, but easy to verify problems.
Yeah.
I think improv comedy and like especially like teaching you how to be like funny in a scene falls into the NP, neasy peasy world, where I think it's really hard for anyone to give you like, here's how you should do a scene and have it be really funny and good always.
Right. Yeah. But like here's the exact way to do it, or here. Exactly. Right. But it's easy to verify.
I laughed.
Right.
I found it funny.
God, that's brilliant.
Thank you.
Yeah, neasy peasy.
Neasy peasy.
Right. Yeah, the audience, the performers and the audience immediately know whether it was funny or not, but you don't know how you got there, or it's hard to reverse engineer. Look, this is an entire podcast and an entire world about it. Like all of us are always trying to do a funny scene.
Right. In the same way, this is an A show, but can I reverse engineer why exactly it's an A show? You could say some parts and some things that like make it that, but like you couldn't. That wouldn't help you do another A show.
Well, and even if we reverse engineer it, and even if we scripted it and tried to do that exact show, it wouldn't be the same.
Yes,
it's ephemeral. It's about watching the people in the moment have the idea and be struck by the realization and jump into inspiration and take a chance and then win. And you can't do that if you plan it or if you're like thinking too hard. Or
I think about this video that I watched a while ago. Is on Second City's it was like their 50th anniversary, and maybe you know more about this.
No, I guarantee I don't.
Okay, well.
I'm a terrible homework doer.
Great. It was a video where they got like all the big hitters. So they got like Stephen Carell and Stephen Colbert to do a scene that they did. It was like I guess some famous scene that they turned into a sketch. And the scene is
it the
like
IQ one? No.
It's like the scene where for some reason, whenever they go to Stephen Colbert's hometown, they're like visiting. Everyone in the town treats Stephen Colbert like an elderly black woman. I don't know if this is like, I don't know. I don't know if this holds up.
Yeah.
But when I'm watching it, and also like it said, I don't know anything about like the history or lore of this. It just said in like the YouTube description, like this was like a famous scene that they improvised.
In 1922.
1922, yeah. When Truman was running.
Right.
And I'm like, I don't think, all the potential problematic parts of it aside, I don't think this scene holds up as a written sketch.
Right.
But it would be probably funny as an improv scene.
Right.
And I think about that all the time where I'm like, there's something specific to, and I feel like that's something that's like ends up being missed is like, there is specific things about improv that does make it different from like sketch, and they're not always one funny sketch does not mean a funny improv scene, the other way around too.
100%. And I am fascinated by forums like Second City that are able to improvise things and refine that into a sketch and take like the parts that work and kind of rebuild the house in a way that makes it a sketch. But you're absolutely right. It's, to me, they're like a far cry from each other because it's like a totally different thing that you're laughing at and enjoying in an improv scene.
Right. And because it's like character stuff, I think works in both, but there's like the surprise of it, or like when the audience is in on, like, I feel like there's so many, when you do like an opening, there are so many premises that would not work as a sketch, but work in an improv show because it's like, well, this works as a scene because we had talked about it like 3 minutes ago. Right.
Well, and in an improv scene, when you're watching an improv scene, you're watching people go, I don't know, this? Yeah. Like they're stumbling into it. So it's so much more forgiving.
Yes.
And you as the audience might be like, oh man, that's like a little bit naughty, or that's so ridiculous. That's so stupid. And you're laughing because of that. And you're like, oh my God, they're trying this stupid thing. They're supporting that. They're all pretending to eat dog shit. Oh my God, that's so silly. But if you scripted that, it would be like, wait, what?
Who cares? Yeah.
Yeah, they sat at a computer and wrote a scene about eating dog shit, and now they rehearsed it and memorized it, and they're wasting my time with it. Like, yeah.
It's like, a scene where you're like, maybe the game is like, oh, we're all making all the references to, like, we're all mapping knowledge of something into a scene. It really crushes if you can pull that off in an improv scene. But yeah, as a sketch, you're like, well, yeah, you wrote that. So who cares?
Right. Yeah. That's so interesting. I have done sketch and feel like I'm not good at it. Like I don't have a handle on that button of like what makes this idea so special and so funny that I can present it on a platter and be like, what do you guys think of my thing? Like, I think like it feels so almost like grimy. Like my idea is so great that I typed it out and now we're going to watch it. You know what I mean?
Yes.
I think because I've done so much more improv that it feels just like a different water temperature. And I'm like, oh God, am I being slimy?
Right.
You know?
And there are parts of like doing too much improv where there's like I think about this, I forget the person's name, but like it was like a Daily Show writer who had a podcast for a bit and he would interview people and he would say things about improv that were like unfair. And then one thing he said was fair was like, you know how long it takes to do 5 minutes of improv? 5 minutes. I went, whoa, that's correct.
Yeah. And that is a cool thing about like you were talking about leaning more writerly as your natural talent. In improv, you can write at the speed of your own brain and at the speed of the collaboration of you and your fellows on stage. on your own, it takes so much longer to write. You're questioning, you're reworking, you're forming things in different ways. Then you have to rehearse it, you change it, you rewrite. But yeah, like to write at the speed of your own ideas is such a gift.
It's such a gift. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's like, it really just makes you like not question yourself. You're not question other people. You just have to kind of go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So let's back up the car a little bit. When you say that you came in kind of with more of a writerly leaning, were you like a writing major of some type in college, or did you have practice writing stuff, or was that just like your own sensibility?
I think it's just my own sensibility. I like actually don't really write all that much outside of like sketch or like comedy. I more am just like, I think like writerly is also like synonymous to me with like comedy nerd.
Yeah.
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 And that's what it means to me. I'm like, oh, I'm like breaking things down into like what makes this funny kind of thing.
What were your comedy nerddom influences?
Yeah. So I have like the classics of like The Simpsons and like the Seinfeld and those like TV shows. Heard of it?
Yeah.
But I feel like what really influenced me is kind of the internet, like early 2000s internet, like before it got really bad. But
are we talking funny videos like E-Bombs World kind of stuff, or like early sketch, like Whitest Kids You Know?
It was more like weird forums. On the internet.
4chan, 8chan.
Yes, not the.
They were hilarious.
They were really funny, and they still are. And I think they get a bad rap.
I do a lot of my online shopping through them.
No, it was like that early internet, like where it was before it became really toxic, but when it was just a little bit toxic. I guess like video game forums where that also had like a not talking about video game forums. There's like a website called like, and it's so there. Growing up in an era where like talking about like things you looked at on the internet, not like they were like wrong or bad, they're just like incredibly dorky and lame. It's so shocking now where everyone speaks like their vernacular is completely just like what people are saying online on like TikTok and stuff.
Yeah,
it's so strange to go back then and be like, oh, I wouldn't really talk about this stuff because like it's dorky. It's so dorky and lame to talk about.
So it was like you're walk me through this, because I'm a little bit of I'm old kind of, and I'm a stranger to like this style of internet. Like at that time I was like, I had an email address, but I wasn't like, I kind of didn't know what to do with online.
Right.
Like I was like, what is it? So you were going on to pages where people would write about video games, write about whatever.
Video games, or like somethingawful.com, which is like a website that has a bunch of forums that did like spark a lot of like internet meme culture, and then like fed into like 4chan. But like before it became really toxic, that's where like a lot of really funny things were posted about, or like they would collect things from the internet and post about them. So it would be like all over. And they're just like, if you just Google like, you know, early 2000s internet funny kind of things. Like,
I can't wait.
Though, like there's like, I think about this one. There is like a bodybuilding forum where it's like a bunch of meatheads arguing about how many days of the week there are. So if I work out every other day, am I working out 3 days a week or 4 days a week? And it's just pages and pages and pages of them like arguing about that.
So they're not in on the joke.
They're not in on the joke.
You as an observer stumble upon this because someone else has posted a link to this in your video game forum and is like, check this out. Right. And now you guys get to laugh at it as like voyeurs of their meatheadness. Right. Yeah.
Or they would do like a Photoshop battle kind of thing where they would post like some neutral image and whoever can come up with like the funniest Photoshop.
Oh, I love that.
The things like that, there was just so much, and so much of it is like lost in my brain, but I know that like a lot of who I am is from these internet things, for better or worse.
Are you? Would you describe yourself as a millennial?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. There's a New York Times article where it's like, this is the peak 1990, which is the year I was born, is the peak millennial year.
Oh wow! Congrats.
Thank you.
You should have like a button on or something.
Yeah. Number one millennial.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. I'm the peak.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. This gives me
Yes.
some homework.
And then, but also the E-Bombs World, or like like Albino Black Sheep, which was this like website full of like Flash videos. Like,
what are Flash videos?
they were like these. Flash was this like animation program that people would use to do all sorts of stuff. But like early, it was like to make like funny little cartoons online. So those would, and then this website collected all of them into the same place, and like you could vote and comment on things, and
that sort of aspect is just that's completely absent from the internet now. Or does it kind of stay alive in a little way on things like Reddit? Or
it stays alive a little bit, but mostly now it's just all within these like larger social media things. Now it's just like, well, now that person who used to make those like little videos, maybe now like the equivalent would just be you have a YouTube account or you have an Instagram account that makes this stuff.
Yeah.
But now it's all aggregated into like, well, you have to be on Instagram or YouTube to do all this.
Gotcha. There's no more sort of indie scene on the internet. Yeah.
Or you were just doing it to do it.
Right.
And like to collect like, oh, I got like 5,000 ratings on this website, and there's nothing to come from it.
So do you think what changed the voice of all of this is the that people now are aiming for likes and to be an influencer, and that has changed the voice or taken it away, or is it like algorithms that have changed it? Because this is interesting to me, like that the reason you create something would make it funny or not funny.
Yeah, that's a good point. I think like it's probably both, because if you're like, oh, I want to make stuff online, what's my way of doing that? You kind of follow what you see.
Right.
And what you see is, well, I would guess if I was like to draw like web comics or something now, I probably wouldn't have my own website, which is what people would used to do in the early 2000s. Like I would read webcomics of people and then post it on their own website. Now you would just have to make like an Instagram.
Right.
Maybe you would have your website also have it, but like the main thing, or at least the most important part, would be have your Instagram and hopefully get like, partnerships or whatever, sponsorships.
Because how were you finding these things before?
I would just trawl through the internet like all day, every day. I would like post things on my AIM, like you could have like a profile or your like what was like your away message or your profile, where you could have like you have 200 characters to post whatever you want, and I would just post like, check this out, and post a link to like something funny I found on the internet. I was just on the internet like all the time.
Yeah, and then that would gather people replying to that, and then those are kind of your people, and then you can follow what they post, like kind of like that. Like you're finding it that way.
Not on AIM, just because it was just like people click. You have no idea who clicks on stuff, but I would just find like the forums, or like there were all these websites that would try to aggregate like funny, interesting things on the internet, like like Stumble Upon or something. Okay,
this seems like a really useless tangent, because it's like people listening are like, you fucking grandma, like we don't give a shit. Why are you trying to discover how the internet works?
But this is like an archive. This is like this no longer exists the way it does now.
Right. And I think this is a cool conversation that I've never had, and it's something that kind of like lives in the back of my mind, is like watching your generation come up and seeing you guys change comedy. Like I do think that comedy changed with your generation. Yeah. It became a little bit more like I don't want to sound insulting.
No,
there's like a half-assness or like kind of a scribbleness about it. Like my generation, everything was like polished and finished and complete, and here's our product. And you guys were like, what if a worm farted and it looked like this?
Totally.
There's just like a more of an instant and a like hand-drawnness. Like Flash animation is a good example, and it's like quicker and it leans anti-comedy, but it is funny. Like it's really funny.
Yeah.
And I look at stuff like the college humor stuff that you guys were doing, and like and everyone like kind of from your cohort, the Ali Beardsleys of the world and the Zach Oyamas, and it's like the stuff they do is so outside of the lines of what I would look for at like the joke, the tilt, the perspective is over there and I'm still sitting at a desk over here, and it's like I've missed it already. They're over there, you know?
Like just having like different angles of what you think is funny.
Yeah. And the willingness to just like do a thing, even though it feels like I don't want to say sloppy. That sounds so mean, but it's like just doing it, saying it, the weird thing, the slightly off thing, the absurd, you know.
Yeah, it's almost like you've seen so many versions of it, of like a type of, if like you were breaking down like a story to do like an improv scene off of. There's like so many versions where you're like, okay, I see that angle, but I've seen that angle like 800 times.
Right.
Or I've seen that, I could do a scene like this off of it, but I've seen that so much.
Right.
And how do I find the thing that's like something I haven't seen before?
And I think that strikes the difference right there. I think, and I keep saying my generation, maybe it's just me. I think like where I have missed with like sketch and stuff is that I'm looking to what's been done as like the role model, and I'm trying to be the good student who's doing it right. So I'm like modeling everything after what I have seen before.
Yes.
And your generation has a real talent for being like, nope, what do I think is funny and what haven't I seen? I'm going to do it like this because nobody's done it before.
Yes. A thing that I use as like a crutch almost is I go to tvtropes.com. Have you ever been, or tvtropes.org?
Okay.
It is a collection of every trope you could ever think of from all media ever. And it's all written in like kind of like a sarcastic way, but all like very accurate. And it's so hyper specific. It's not like, oh, the princess and like the hero. It's like the princess who is actually secretly a badass who like actually knows all the skills. Like it's that specific.
Yeah.
And I will just go through and I'll hit random until like something sparks an idea, and then I'll write like a sketch off of it.
That's brilliant.
Because it's like I need to see. There's so much like in the brain, and maybe that's it. Is like the technology where maybe when like the difference in time when it's like starting comedy, where someone starting now has, you know, could have watched like 10 times more comedy than I ever did. And that just scales. Like I maybe watched 10 times more comedy than you did when starting because of, you know, all like internet, DVDs, even like all those things. Like,
and the access and the ability to like have the search bar in front of you so you can find it immediately.
Right.
It's not just the exposure, it's the ability to like look through the files quickly.
Exactly.
I mean, here's the difference. It's both are easy to verify, but I'm walking around the grocery store without a calculator, and you have a calculator and a pen and paper, and you're able to like tap into the mainframe and be like, find me 6 grocery items.
Oh, right. Yes.
You know?
Find me. Yeah. Oh, this scene is like this. And it's like these, like this one SNL sketch, this one College Humor sketch, this one like weird like British show I once watched. Like,
right.
Yeah.
You still have to choose the 100 items that add up to $1,000 or the 30 items that add up to $100, but you have like a scan gun and like a map of the store.
Yes.
And I'm the old lady with the cart going, well, I think this would be with tax, and you're already at the checkout.
I'm supermarket sweeping. I just wipe the entire thing into my cart.
Or you say, fuck it. Your joke is piling everything in the store and going, I think this is $100. So you're like making fun of the thing as a whole, you know, I think. Like I'm characterizing your generation in such a like stereotypical way, but I think that's the difference is like, you guys are able to like tilt the whole thing and go, this is what's funny about even the format. Like, absolutely, fuck the format, you know?
And I think about that too, where I'm like, well, now I feel like I'm a veteran. I'm looking at people coming up and being like, oh, what's like the differences here?
Yeah.
And like, how much of it is like, oh, you started doing like Zoom improv. And now here you are doing like in-person improv, like that stuff. Like, how does that affect like how you play?
What do you see in this like Gen Z, Gen Alpha crowd comedy wise that feels like their thumbprint to you?
I feel like I don't know yet. I don't know. I haven't maybe seen enough to really be like, here are the differences. Yeah, I don't know. Do you
Yeah.
see anything like?
I have a hard time like differentiating because all of you guys like are younger than me and funnier than me, I feel like, or like braver, I think, or
Okay.
quicker, or there's just like a different the ideas, but it all kind of like lumps into
Sure.
like younger than me, you know.
I feel like maybe like as like each younger generation, maybe it is like the kind of like the lack of better words, like commitment or like taking it at all seriously just like kind of goes down too. Like it's like much more like sarcastic or more detached from
Taking it less seriously is a good way to say. When I was saying like sloppy, I don't mean sloppy like, oh, you didn't try, but it's like kind of like a little bit cheeky, rebellious, like, well, we don't have to follow all the rules, or this honestly none of this matters.
Right.
Yeah,
and back to like the the IO inspired training, where now I sometimes look at scenes and it's all like you can watch every single scene and come out of it being like, was that just two people talking to each other in a void?
right.
And so many scenes are like, you can see are like that. And then some scenes are like, oh no, they were in reality. They were doing some object work. They were like going beyond just two people talking to each other. They were like in a shared reality.
Yeah. So bringing all of this back to improv, I would argue that sort of like shrugging off of like this doesn't really matter and we don't take this seriously does not translate well to improv. It works for sketch and internet comedy and joke writing, like all of that kind of like voicey stuff. But when you're talking about collaborating on stage in a live art form, boy, does that stuff not fly.
Right.
Yeah.
Because you're constantly reminding the audience, we are just two people on a empty stage with no props and no anything, no set, no anything, and be like, oh yeah, that's just two people being like trying to be funny.
Yeah.
And it's not a reality.
Yeah, and if they don't care and if they're not trying to make it something, then why does the audience care?
Right.
And we're all here in this room, like they want to see you care and work and do it.
Yes.
Yeah. Wow, I feel high. I feel like we just shot out of a cannon.
Way back out.
Oh, God. It's like when you watch a documentary on DMT and they're like, yeah, I shot out of my body into like the edge of the universe and met all of my ancestors and came back. And they're like, how long was I gone? And they're like, 5 minutes. It's like, wait, what?
Okay. And then go back right into what you were just doing.
Yeah, exactly. Anyway, so we need to finish these reports. Okay. So draw a line for me between like, so your Boston stuff did that lead to College Humor or
no? I led to New York, where I didn't know if I would ever move to New York to like do improv more. Like going back to like, I never thought I would continue to keep doing this. And because I knew about UCB, but I didn't really know anything about it. And then I went to like my first DCM with college friends. It was like the year we had graduated from college, and I remember seeing like the one show that was like, oh, I guess I have to move to this city. Was it was a 2-man movie where there's just Anthony Tammy, Neil Casey just doing the movie form, just the two of them. And I remember the opening of that form, I was like, this isn't very good. They were like kind of just like stumbling through it. And it's just like wasn't very entertaining at all. And then the moment that Anthony Tammy came out and said it was like this like Star Wars type show or movie. And I think his first line was like, I guess I'm gonna have to earn my breakfast today. And I was like, oh, and then just like this euphoria washed over me and be like, I understand what's going on now, what that entire first 5 minutes was even for. And I was like, oh, I think I have to come to New York to like learn these things.
What was the opening that they were doing?
The form is like the movie form is like they do like almost like a scene painting, but more like using the movie edit words. So
they were doing classic movie form.
Yes.
It's just that you hadn't seen it and you were like, what is this nebulous? Why are they scene painting stuff and then not doing scenes in it?
I had never even seen like an improv show with like an opening really at that point. And I was like, what is all this stuff? And like, they weren't doing the thing. And then It was just the two of them, so it was like it was like work to get through each piece. But then realizing, these were vignettes of like characters within the show that, I mean, now I know, now having like taken the class and done the form of like, they're landing on what genre it even is based on the scene paintings.
Yeah.
Because they don't know what it is until they finish it, really, or like the first or second one.
Right. And so it blew your mind.
It blew my mind.
Yeah. That show made you have to move to New York.
It did, yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
I love stories like this. Have you met Neil or Anthony and told them this?
I have not, actually.
That'd be cool for them to know that like a show that they did, a single show, changed the course of someone's life and career.
Yeah, I should, yeah.
For part 2 of this episode, go to yesalso.supercast.com. If you like this podcast, you can support us and get a ton of bonus content over at yesalso.supercast.com. If you have a question about improv that you'd like us to answer on one of our future Q&A episodes, send it on over to yesalsopod@gmail.com. Remember to follow us on Instagram at yesalsopod and keep sharing us with your improv communities. We love the love. If you're a theater who would like to host us for a live recording and improv show, let us know at yesalsopod@gmail.com. A huge shout out to Ryan Rosenberg, who produced this thing with his generous help and his unlimited knowledge about all things podcast. Thanks for listening, and we will see you next week. No, we won't, Susie. That's not how podcasts work. They will see. They won't even see us. They will listen to us. So it's actually the opposite of both things you said. Thanks for listening, and you will listen to us next week. Maybe. We don't know.